Hey everyone, it's Nikki with Thrive Bodywork in Alexandria, Virginia, coming at you in the landscape mode like a human person who knows how to make videos. Today I want to discuss belly breathing and why, like a fairy who dies every time a child says they don't believe in fairies, a little piece of Nikki dies every time somebody says belly breathe. So we've talked in the past about the fact that we're a series of cylinders. We're squishy tin men, right? And this torso cylinder here, I call it the oil drum. And that's really important to remember, especially the base of the oil drum here, okay? That's the pelvic floor. And the pelvic floor is something that I'm going to talk about a lot. Please know when I, am doing things like this, it's anatomy, and please, gross men on the internet, don't ruin it for the rest of us. Now, we forget that our lungs, or that our ribs, are a three-dimensional piece of us. We always think of them as a front thing. They're also a side thing, and they're a back thing. And our lungs live under our ribs. So why, in God's freaking name, are we all breathing into our bellies? Oi, okay, so, tangent, rant aside here for a second. The mechanism of breath is, if you can imagine the oil drum here, okay? If I cut myself in half right here and showed you the bottom of my ribs, you would see a round muscle around the whole, middle part of that oil drum, okay? That's called the diaphragm. We're all pretty familiar with it. The diaphragm, as we take breath, descends and creates a vacuum that sucks air into our lungs, and then when we exhale, it comes back up and forces the air out, okay? Now, the piece of the breath that people forget about is the pelvic floor, okay? So what is supposed to happen is, as this diaphragm descends, there's stuff in the way, right? Both literal and figurative shit here. And so the pelvic floor actually behaves like another diaphragm. And a diaphragm, this muscle is just named for its shape. It's a diaphragm. So I think of it as sort of a trampoline, right? That kind of goes out and down. So it comes down and out, and then comes back up, and then down and out. So the pelvic floor actually behaves like another diaphragm. And as the ribcage diaphragm descends, so should the pelvic floor, allowing the stuff in the belly to go down into the hips, thus creating room for the diaphragm to descend. And then when we exhale, both diaphragms come up together. And that motion is what, keeps both of those major muscles supple and active. It also is what keeps the muscles inside the hip bowl nice and lubricated and participatory. And it's what helps move the digestive system and keep the organs independent and floating freely inside the fascial matrix of the belly. It also then completely allows for the lungs to inhale, to inflate multidimensionally, and allows the rib cage to inflate and deflate multidimensionally. And motion is lotion. That ability to send breath into all of these spaces is what keeps us flexible from the inside out. But if we are only breathing into our belly, we're not expanding our ribs to allow lungs to take air. So the ribs are never moving, they're never getting lubricated, and they get stuck together. So they de-individuate, and then they get heavy, and then that contributes to them sort of succumbing to gravity that we discuss in the second video. The other thing that happens is the abdominal muscles, the front abdominals, cannot be both on and off at the same time. And if you are only going out in one direction to belly breathe, the abdominal musculature has to, by definition, turn itself off, meaning that we're sending our sort of standing in gravity abilities straight into the spine. The spine, again, bones are the organ of structure. They are not the organ of posture. And so those spine muscles and bones get really, really, really mad. Plus, they're in lockdown. And so they're losing their own breath and pliability. So all of these things go just really awry and contribute to just so many problems. So when you hear belly breath, I want you to start to think full three-dimensional torso breath. And it's one of those things that can be really difficult to feel and understand until you've had structural integration done, because we really do lose the fascial capacity to allow our ribs to open, to allow our diaphragm to descend properly, and to send breath into the pelvic floor. So in the first session of the series of 10 that Ida Rolf, over her illustrious 60-plus year career, put together, the intention of the first session is really to get that torso, that three-dimensional torso breath more active and back, as well as get the femur rolling inside that hip socket, which we discussed also in the functional anatomy video. So hopefully that makes some sense. www.thrivealexandria.com. I'll hope to see those of you in the DMV area on my table. Otherwise, have a great day, and belly breathe, or torso breathe, no belly breathing. Take care.